Welcome back to another installment of Keeping BZ, the show where Zach and I play a video game and show each other it to necessitate talking to each other and being around each other. And today we're taking a look at Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights, the very first Scooby-Doo game released for the PlayStation 2. Developed by Heavy Iron Studios, who would go on to do the Spongebob Battle for Bikini Bottom, the excellent SpongeBob 3D platformer that later got a remaster. This never got a remaster, but I find this game also to be pretty underrated, and I imagine many of you out there probably also have nostalgia for this one. Zach and I are going to talk about this game, as well as our memories and our overall thoughts on Scooby-Doo and Hanna-Barbera franchises.
There are other Hanna-Barbera franchises?
Not that they want you to believe. I mean, technically, there's that show Yellowstone that debuted on HBO Max a couple years ago, and that had all kinds of Hanna-Barbera characters in it, but I don't think it lasted particularly long.
Crabs.
Otherwise, it's just another reboot of Scooby-Doo.
Shrimp. Runa sushi. All right, you two. Don't forget the.
I've seen some clips of Yellowstone, and it actually doesn't look too bad. I might check it out someday.
No,
I'd like to, just to see what it is. But for whatever reason, this very, very 60s, early 70s show about a group of very groovy teenagers who live in a place called Coolsville, solving mysteries that usually involve people trying to gain insurance money by wearing diving helmets over their heads has somehow endured for more than half a century.
Freddy, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby-Doo.
If you really think about all the long-running franchises, you start to see that they're all really bizarre. Scooby-Doo is a random one to still last this long, though.
Really?
But I guess it's very easy to put in modern times, or the equivalent of modern times.
Alexander Graham.
Yeah, which this one doesn't really, I mean, this one is more, feels like it's set in an episode of the show, though I will say, when the twist comes as to who the killer is, not the killer, but the one behind everything and what they were doing, it has a bit of a modern twist with modern technology that made me go, that's strange to be in this very 60s episode feeling of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? But I did like the twist. It gave it a something that makes this game memorable and unique on top of just the game itself.
We're not afraid.
When you said killer, I immediately thought of a Scooby-Doo version of it, then there were none.
Yeah, just any Agatha Christie story, which I'm sure was some of the inspiration for some of the episodes.
Most likely.
Only ghost-free environment.
I mean, there was definitely episodes of the show where the characters were disappearing one by one as the others tried to figure out what's causing them to disappear.
Okay, you scaredy cats. Stay here if you want.
Come on, guys.
I really like the graphics in this game. They're not the greatest, but I think it captures the look of the 60s show very, very well.
You read my mind.
Yeah, it's not cel-shaded, but something about it does a very nice job of just capturing the look with very simple models.
Scooby snacks. Hey there, Scoob. Wait up. Leave some for me.
And of course, they got the original show's cast back to record for this, and they're all doing their usual work. Like, that's the thing. Like, the Scooby-Doo actors, they've changed a few times throughout the decades, but they always come in, and no matter if it's a video game or a movie or another episode of another Scooby-Doo show, they always turn in the kind of work that is expected of them. They always sound good.
Raggy? I'm all alone. Oh.
So Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights it's weird. It's a mixture of 3D platforming, though primarily the game is a 2.5D platformer like Klonoa, The Door to Phantomville, or what else, like Pandemonium, that kind of a PS1 era stuff. Though obviously with, PS2 era graphics. And this was like fairly close to the early days of the PS2, but graphically I still think, like Zach said, the game looks pretty nice for the era. Especially the animations do a perfect job capturing what the characters in Scooby-Doo always moved like with their repeated animations.
Brandon, are you going to show off any speed running tricks?
No, probably not.
Okay. Honestly, I wouldn't even know how to do any. I've seen a little bit of a speedrun of this. Apparently it has a decently sized speedrunning community.
I can believe that. So yes, now we're in the titular mansion of the story.
Out there? I need some help in here.
Right.
And you might notice that the monsters and the paintings in the background, everything has little references to monsters from the original show. We got the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type character that was in... I forget. That was in either an episode of Where Are You or one of the Scooby-Doo movies. I forget.
Whoa.
Rolly?
Oh, Scooby-Doo, I'm so glad you found me. Ugh, it was just awful. As soon as we got inside the mansion, the mastermind appeared. He told us that he is behind my uncle's disappearance. Then he pulled on a lever, these traps...
That is certainly a face.
...and we were all whisked away.
Yep.
Here, take this map. It'll help you get around a little easier.
So yeah, this is our map, which, as you can see, this game's world is filled with different areas that are interlocking with each other and either feed back in or have a shortcut, or the little swirly dots you see are like fast travel points we can get later where we can use a transporter to warp all around the map. So yeah, pretty ahead of its time in some ways. Load times are super quick in between each area, which is always appreciated in a game like this. Scooby Snacks basically just act as your like Spyro gem currency in order to unlock the next area. The boxes of Scooby Snacks contain a little more than just a standard, one Scooby Snack, but sometimes they're placed in places that are hard to get to.
Ruby snacks.
Oh, we need the professor's helmet to get through here, so we can't go through these webs yet. And you're going to encounter a lot of this if you play this game, where there's tons of areas where you're like, I guess I can't go here yet, and you have to turn back and find another way to investigate the area. Thankfully, the fast travel points usually act as a way to warp yourself back to an area you previously couldn't access instead of having to backtrack the full way. But there is still a decent amount of backtracking in Night of 100 Frights. But I think the controls are good. I think the game does a really good job with its variety of different areas. The atmosphere definitely feels very Scooby-Doo. Speaking of, we got celebrity guests.
The gate, huh? Well, so am I.
We have Don Knotts, who I'm pretty sure was probably dead by the time this game came out, but they got a good sound alike.
Buried around here somewhere, but you'll need a shovel. Here, take this and get to work.
Buried treasure. Ruby.
So you might be wondering how I got over here so quickly. Well,
Yeah.
never mind. I'm strange and spooky. Now move along.
Yeah, sometimes when you're just like doing animations, you'll hear this laugh track just come in, which the original Scooby-Doo Where Are You and many of the 70s and 80s spin-offs of it did have a laugh track. It's a little bizarre just hearing it just suddenly pop up in this game when you're just doing things you usually do. Can't get that yet because we need another power-up for that. So we're going to head to the docks next.
There's a warp gate.
Warp gates are how we fast travel. Another thing, that's just like an extras gallery where monster tokens you unlock you can use to look at like concept art and bios of different Scooby-Doo monsters. Because part of the gimmick with this game is that for some reason all the past monsters the gang have encountered over their past shows are all just common enemies in this game. So you're going to encounter them along the way. And yeah, I do find it bizarre that once again I'm encountering another piece of Scooby-Doo media that predicted a plot point that the live-action movies would use. Zombie Island was like, the advertising for Scooby-Doo and Zombie Island was, the monsters are real this time. And then the Scooby-Doo live-action movie was like, the monsters are real this time. And I remember thinking back in the day, wait, didn't they already do this? And then with this game, they're going, all the original Scooby-Doo monsters are back, but they might actually be robots. And then Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed came out and did the same exact thing.
Cyber Chase also had a... Cyber Chase takes place in the video game, so there was a whole level dedicated to bringing back Scooby-Doo villains. That's just something they seem to like to do a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly easier than actually, coming up with new ones after making so many.
Rummy. Oh.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I can't remember the button to tiptoe. But it doesn't matter. We can just run past them. I do love the sound effects design in this game because it has all the usual goofy, over-the-top Hanna-Barbera sound effects you'd hear in the show for everything. What was your first experience with Scooby-Doo, Zach?
Which one?
The original show. Mostly just if I was sick from school, it would usually be on Cartoon Network, but back then I wasn't really a huge fan of it. It always...
Which one?
The writing was always bland to me, and I never, ever liked the idea of a cartoon with a soundtrack. It just bothered me as a kid. Although I was an idiot as a kid, and I thought what they would do is they would make the cartoon, and then they would show the cartoon to a live audience and then record their laughter.
Oh.
And then I was disappointed when I found out, oh no, that's just a sound effect.
Yeah, it's all just pre-recorded stuff that, I mean, you can hear the same laugh tracks played over multiple Hanna-Barbera shows. They really were just like a factory in many senses.
Now I know what a rubber band feels like.
And see, when I watched Scooby-Doo back in the day, Zach, and like you, I was a kid that, like, I would go over to my grandmother's house and they would have Cartoon Network and Boomerang and all those channels, and I would just watch tons of the original Scooby-Doo because it was mindless entertainment to put on. And I remember, yeah, Scooby-Doo just being that thing I would put on even though it didn't really offer me much in terms of substance, but it was, maybe I'd try to guess what the mystery was, but they didn't do much for me, and yet as time has gone on and Scooby-Doo has continued to endure, I found myself pulled to Scooby-Doo media, and I can't tell if it really is just because of nostalgia or if there's something deeper about the appeal of this franchise and its characters that intrinsically just pulls me in where I want to engage with it.
Get a move on!
There's some legitimately good Scooby-Doo stuff. There's also some stuff that's not that great. But, that's what you're going to get with a series that ran as long as Scooby-Doo. There's going to be some hits and misses. Of course, one of the two biggest hits for me, and I'm pretty sure Brandon would agree, are Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island and Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated.
Yeah, the show Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated is, like, No, it's not even like a contest. It is like the best Scooby-Doo has ever been quality-wise. Obviously, the old shows and the old movies do have their own charms, but in terms of just crafting a continuity-heavy story with interesting characters, good twists, good mysteries, good comedy, Mystery Inc., despite some fans feeling like that it changed too much in terms of the status quo, I felt like the changes it made it the best. And while there is just a charm to Scooby-Doo on its own, I feel like Mystery Inc. it will never truly be topped.
Right? Crabs!
That said, when Cartoon Network was on, I would be watching the millions and millions of endless Scooby-Doo shows and Scooby-Doo movies that would come on. I remember specifically the Loch Ness Monster movie, the Monster from Mexico. God, I mean, and then of course, you know, the ones of the early 2000s and late 90s that were of higher quality, like Witch's Ghost, Cyber Chase, and Alien Invader.
Right?
And we're back. We just had some internet issues. Anyway, we're continuing on. And you didn't miss much anyway, viewer, because I really did was just backtrack from the docks after I got the double jump springs, and now we're going to actually continue on with the main game.
I also grew up with a lot of Scooby-Doo movies. Main ones I remember are outside of Zombie Island, of course. Witch's Ghost. Witch's Ghost is a good one, but I don't really like the ending of it. The Alien Invasion one I thought was okay. I remember one about pirates, but I forget the name of it. It's probably something simple like Ahoy, Scooby-Doo.
Oh, a monster.
That tends to be how they do this. They made like 3 or 4 different Halloween-themed Scooby-Doos as well. Ah, almost got it. I want those Scooby snacks.
Yeah, what other ones have I seen? Because there's a lot, but some of them are just not that memorable. They just exist.
Ruby snacks.
I mean, there's so many, and I've only really seen a lot of the earlier ones because then they just kept pumping out more and more and more, and especially when they started going back and referencing their earlier movies, it usually ended up with things that were of very mixed quality.
Oh, the Loch Ness Monster one. There's that one.
Cool, a monster token.
Yeah, they were just things that Cartoon Network would play, and sometimes Disney would be playing a live-action sitcom I had no interest in, and I don't know what the hell would be a Nickelodeon, so I just ended up watching the Scooby-Doo movie.
Right, it's a headless specter.
I remember thinking What's New Scooby-Doo was alright as a kid.
Oh yeah, I mean, that was basically just the original show, but updated. And set in like a modern setting, which then many of the movies kind of just pulled from that show's modern setting and just did movies based on that. Loch Ness Monster, I believe, was one of those.
It was.
But yeah, What's New Scooby-Doo was decent. It definitely was just kind of continued on the tradition without really touching the status quo all that much.
And then, recently, just like a couple days ago, I showed Brandon Boo Brothers, and boy, does it not hold up very well.
Yeah, Scooby-Doo meets the Boo Brothers from, I think that was like, that had to have been like late 70s, early 80s, and yeah, I had watched Boo Brothers as a kid, and Ghoul School, and Reluctant Werewolf, and that whole like trilogy of older Scooby-Doo movies, and I was curious to see how they would hold up, because yeah, like Zach, I remember like the mystery of them trying to figure out the clues that Shaggy's relative left behind. And maybe there'd be some clues that would be fun to figure out, and honestly, it was a pretty miserable experience, mainly because you could tell to an almost desperate fashion it was a movie stretched to 90 minutes purely by just constantly interrupting the story to put in hijinks that were not funny or amusing and mostly just repeated the same couple of gags over and over again. Mainly the Boo Brothers themselves, the titular Boo Brothers, are the most pointless part of the movie that, besides 1 or 2 occasions, don't contribute to the story in any meaningful way, besides, yeah, just being kind of Three Stooges ripoffs that just kind of do the same slapstick over and over again.
Yeah, I always thought it was one of my favorite Scooby-Doo movies for whatever reason. I guess I just like the mansion, and I don't know. I'm trying to look at it, and I'm just like, what did I see in this? I guess it would have had to have been the mystery, but it takes up 10 minutes of the movie?
Yep, pretty much.
Oh, okay, it is a power-up, alright.
Yep. Oh well, he just gives me those power-ups. One thing I love about this game is the detail put into the animations. Like, if you just stand still, you just see Scooby-Doo put the lampshade on, and you actually can see his knees wiggling in fear. Does he have an idle animation with this power-up? I guess not. Some of the different power-ups, he has like an idle animation that is pretty funny. I mean, I know you don't need Scooby-Doo to have Mystery Inc. when you're doing certain kinds of reboots where a talking dog would be more weird, like if you're doing it like in live action. But I still think there's something intrinsic to the identity of this franchise to have the talking dog. It just is like just funny and charming and weird.
Harry Treasure.
I mean, the series is named after him.
True. Unless it's like Mystery Inc.
Oh, yeah, true.
Do you have a favorite member of the Mystery Inc. gang, Zach?
I was actually just thinking about that, and I guess it kind of ends up being Velma by default, because I like her more recent, more sarcastic attitude. But even just the way she goes jinkies, or goes, my glasses, when she loses them, I guess gives her something over Fred, who is a man, and he's there. And Daphne,
yes,
who is a woman and is also there. And then Shaggy, who eats things and runs away a lot. And then Scooby-Doo, who also eats things and runs away a lot. He's a dog. I mean,
that was one of the main things that made Boo Brothers interesting, was that Scrappy-Doo is a part of the main three. It's just Scooby and Shaggy and Scrappy in that movie, and Scrappy-Doo has to pick up the slack because Shaggy and Scooby just most of the time don't even want to engage with the plot in any way and kind of just want to eat snacks. And the story wouldn't even happen if Scrappy-Doo wouldn't go, hey guys, it's another clue. Shouldn't we do something about this?
See, before we watched Boo Brothers, Brad and I were debating about if Scrappy was really that bad. And my experience with Scrappy-Doo is more Reluctant Werewolf. I'm pretty sure he's in Reluctant Werewolf and Ghoul School. I'm like 90% sure about that. And Boo Brothers. And also 13 Ghosts, but I've only seen a couple of episodes of that, and that was a long time ago. But I remember Scrappy not really being that bad. And I think I even remember liking him as a kid, because I would just get so irritated by how much Shaggy and Scooby wanted nothing to do with anything. Although I guess now that I think about it, that's kind of what Fred, Daphne, and Velma were always there for. And then Scrappy gets kind of thrown in to be sort of like the Baby Yoda, Baby Sonic thing. Although way before that was a thing.
I mean, his existence is just kind of intrinsic to what happened to a lot of TV shows that went on too long. They go, okay, let's introduce the baby or the kid to add something that will pull audiences back in. And Zach, you're somebody that... Zach, you played Danganronpa V3, a game that introduces baby Monokumas.
Yeah.
That's kind of the same thing. That they're literally playing off of that trope.
Robin.
God, I love that game so much. V3's so good. But, I don't know. Honestly, what made me really start thinking about Scrappy-Doo is I watched Billiam's video on Scrappy-Doo. And it was just nice to see somebody else that was also not really justifying Scrappy, but just saying he's not the worst thing ever made in the history of art and animation. That's the only thing I'm arguing against. Because like I said, like what Brandon said about Brother Brothers, Scrappy-Doo is the best character, but only by default because he's the only one doing anything.
Yes.
Robin! Come on, Scoob!
Some of my favorite moments in Scooby-Doo are when the characters are, when like Shaggy and Scooby's behavior is actually called out by other characters or other, by like NPCs in the environment, like in Witch's Ghost when they're eating at a restaurant and Shaggy and Scooby order like plates that cover the entire table and just start eating all of them, and there's just a shot of the customers around them looking terrified.
Yes, that scene always made me laugh as a kid.
This thing's out of control, pal. If you need me, I'll be back at the start. Wahoo!
It's weird. I keep watching Scooby-Doo stuff, but I'm not usually a big fan of either of the main casts of Scooby-Doo, and I can't really tell you what keeps bringing me back beyond just he's always there. And you know, I still like Mystery Incorporated. It's a legitimately good show. But I would say I like it not because it's a good Scooby-Doo show, it's just a good show, but it has the Scooby-Doo cast in it. And I would say the same thing about Zombie Island.
I mean, a lot of that movie's story is kind of related to the characters because it's all about them trying to get back together and solve a real mystery.
Right?
And I do find a lot of the scenes in Zombie Island that's all about what the gang has been up to ever since they split up pretty charming and interesting. Like Velma running a bookstore or Shaggy and Scooby being people that check baggage at airports and just eat all the food.
Yeah, Zombie Island is one of the only movies I can think of that actually does a good job with the getting the band back together storyline. Because normally I hate it. Well, maybe not hate, but it's just so played out for me. But Zombie Island, I think, did a good job with it.
Yeah.
I think that might be because there's no... they don't really argue with each other. There hasn't been a fight, unlike that stupid fucking live-action Scooby-Doo movie.
Whee!
What, you mean you don't like Scooby-Doo punching people on airplanes?
No, I like that, but I just mean, like,
But Scooby-Doo doesn't punch people!
I don't care, I like when people get punched. Look, one of my favorite scenes of Scooby-Doo of all time is Scooby-Doo dual-wielding Uzis and shooting Nazi robots.
Okay, yeah, fair. I mean, those moments in Mystery Inc. were pretty cool, like when he takes on the robot Scooby-Doo Terminator with that forklift. That was pretty funny. Oh,
what is it that Scooby-Doo says to Shaggy after Shaggy gets out of boot camp? Oh, I don't remember. It's something like, boy, boot camp sure did a lot for you, huh? Or something like that. And I'm like, damn, Scoob.
It was something like that because Shaggy Shaggy was sent off to boot camp and Scooby was sent off to basically like a animal farm place that looked pretty unsafe and terrible. And when Shaggy is trying to hide from the monster that they're put up against after they come back from being split up, Scooby-Doo literally just looks at Shaggy and just goes, boy, all the good the army really did you, Shaggy. Which, eventually Scooby mellows out and he becomes Scooby-Doo again. But I just thought it was interesting seeing these characters with, like, character development. It was, like, bizarre. Like Scooby-Doo holding his fist out to the villain and going, we'll get you for this, Professor Pericles. It's like, that's the only time I've ever heard Scooby-Doo make a vengeful cry.
Right?
But that's what I liked about it, though. Because Scooby-Doo is usually played so safe with just the same formula, but updated. So Mystery Inc. just felt like such a breath of fresh air.
It's a warp game.
should probably save this for when we get to it, because I think it'll probably be our next Keeping Busy, assuming my internet doesn't die again. But, next I'd like to do Mystery Mayhem, and that's the Scooby-Doo game I like. That one's not a platformer from what I remember, though.
Yeah, I don't know too much about most of the other Scooby-Doo games. I grew up with playing a demo of this one at a kiosk in, like, Walmart's. I only really played this game fully for myself, like, last year when I bought a copy of it. And I just enjoyed it because I always just enjoy simple kids' platformers because they're very relaxing to play. But primarily, the Scooby-Doo game I grew up with was, I believe it was Creepy Capers, and it was the Game Boy Color version of it, which was actually a really extensive point-and-click game that really used the Game Boy Color to its fullest. Like, there's some incredible animation work in that game, and maybe we'll show that off one day on this channel, but I'll probably do that as like a post-recording, because trying to focus on talking to Zach with all of the dialogue in that game would be difficult. But if you've not played the Game Boy Color version of Creepy Capers, it's fantastic. That all said, I think that's a pretty good showing of Night of 100 Frights. If you like the idea of a Scooby-Doo 2.5D metroidvania, this game does exist, and it's pretty solid. It's another good, polished platformer from Heavy Iron Studios. And join us next time when it sounds like Zach will be showing me Mystery Mayhem, which is the game that came right after this. That was developed, instead of by Heavy Iron Studios, it was developed by Artificial Might and Magic, not Might and Magic, but Artificial Mind and Logic, which I had, I know very little about Mystery Mayhem. I don't know anything about it as a game, so we'll see. Join us next time on Keeping Busy.
Roix?